to do a little session here that's going to help with people with dodgy knees. Now, there's a bit of an idea going around that if you have a problem with your knee, you should do stuff for your knee. Now, that might be true in a small amount of cases, but the majority of what I see in my practice is that knee pain tends to relate to what happens at the ankle and the hip. So the knee itself is a hinge joint. It tends to move back and forth. We've obviously got ligaments to stabilise it from rotating and moving too far laterally. But those sort of movements it's a slave to what happens at the ankle and the hip. So often, a lot of therapists now move into doing some hip work for what happens at the knee. And the theory there is that if I can't stabilise my hip laterally when I walk, or I can't externally rotate with the muscles in my hip, then my knee is probably going to stay collapsed. Now this is also true for things such as stuck in eversion of the foot. So this is often called overpronation, but I like to think of pronation as a movement of the foot rather than a position. So, and it makes people scared of pronating their foot, but we need to be able to pronate our foot in order to have internal and external rotation of the leg. So we're going to look at those couple of things. Something else we tend to look at a bit, and I don't really look at that much, is that there's this idea that not having stability around the hip and activation of the external rotators of the hip causes tightness of the TFL, which goes on to tighten the ITV, which causes the patella to track out, and this idea that we need to activate the VMO. So that could play a part, but I think that's not the only solution. I've seen a lot of people go through that type of therapy and not actually get rid of their knee pain. So let's just start at the start. So we're going to come sitting on the mat. Okay, you will need a ball for this, and I'll probably do something with a wedge too. So here, we're just going to look at the ability of the tibia to move back and forth like this. Now there is also an idea that this is good for reducing inflammation of the knee joint itself. Now here I want to make sure that my toes are flat plating. I'm not inverting the foot here or inverting and everting the foot. I'm just making sure that the foot runs fairly flat here, and I can feel the bone just below my knee move as I do it. That can be good to follow up with. This is better on a chair really. But I want to move my toes back and forth and make sure that my hamstring tendons, and you'll feel them at the back of your leg, aren't moving too much. I want to make sure that the muscle behind my knee called my popliteus is helping this movement. Sometimes you can feel it contracting. But if you find that your hamstring tendons are doing this job, you can just bring your foot into a position where the hamstring doesn't fire too much and just practice that rotation of tibia. Okay, other side. So here I'm going to just move the toe in and out, make sure my tibia is moving, which is this big shin bone here. I'm going to practice this little thing too, try and get that muscle behind my knee to contract. So here, I don't want to feel those hamstring tendons contracting. I'll put the ball behind my knee, squeeze here, do some up and down side to side movements. So you could feel a bit of tenderness in the top of your calf here if you've had some issues. Just going to keep pulling my heel towards my butt. So, just moving back and forth, up and down. Then I'm going to come onto all fours. My weight is in my right hand. I'm going to lift my right leg. Knee back, hip opens, rotate through, foot comes up. Knee comes forward, open up, lift the foot, come back down. So, front, See, I drop the foot, the knee to the elbow, back, open up, lift the foot, come back around. Side, weight in the left hand, lift the foot, let the left foot drop to the right hip, knee to the elbow, and come around in a circle. Then, get my ball, find a bone in front of my hip, and place it under my TFL. So you'll probably feel a bit of sensitivity around that area. And it's going to roll, let that muscle go side to side across the ball. So that's happening. The bone is here, and the ball is going like this across my hip. It's kind of the outside, towards the outside of your hip. Bend and straighten the knees, I just leave the ball on one spot. And check sides. See how I open this leg here. Make sure I give weight to the left hip. Straighten the knee. And I'm going to come into a stretch for this muscle. This can be a difficult one. Now I'm going to come into a lunge. Now, see how my hip's sticking up here? I want to tuck my hip under and lunge forward a bit. So hip under, lunge forward a bit. Might feel that here. We want to get the outside, which is that muscle we should just have the ball under. So I'm going to grab my knee, turn, so I've got my left hip stretching, turn to my right. I'm going to drop my right shoulder, hopefully starting to get it out here. Now some people get it more if they bring their foot towards their midline. I certainly get it more on this one, but it can be a really hard muscle to find. You might need to experiment with how far you lunge forward. You might have more rotation, more lean. But you want to feel it more to the side of the hip. The other side. Tuck the hip under. Grab on the outside of the knee, turn, and lean. Following this up with some activation of the glute is good. There's a variety that I'll do. I'll show one that's easy to video, keep in the flow. Coming onto the back, we're going to roll the hip off the floor. Right foot stays on the ground. I'm going to lift my left knee to my chest. Straighten my left leg out. Bring the left knee back. Put it on the floor. Now what you're watching for here, as you straighten the leg, you don't want that left hip to come closer to the ground. Your left and right hip should stay really level. And you should be starting to feel this work through the outside of that right hip. That's the other side. So my hip's up as high as it can. Straightening my right leg, making sure that right hip doesn't drop. Keep my hip nice and high here. Make sure the weight's in the heel of the foot on the ground. I actually lift my toes. Okay, now I'm going to do some work around the foot. So here, I'm just going to let the joints open up on the ball, rolling side to side across the toes. Bit of pressure into the arch. And the back in front of the heel. On the side. Toes. Under the arch. just in front of the heel. Side to side. Then, I want to make sure my foot can pronate well. Now you could use a doorstop. Get one of my private clients, probably got some of these. Just placing a wedge underneath the big toe. And here I'm letting my knee come towards my big toe, making sure the joint can open and close on the inside of the foot. I'm not losing contact of the toes. And we've done this, you also know to lift your hip, but lifting the hip can be difficult with this. If you'd like to start with just focusing on making sure you can see the middle of the foot rolling in and out without losing contact with the toes. Just do a handful on each side. So it's important for the knee, even though you might feel like this is dangerous for the knee because it's coming into this scary spot, we need to be able to let the foot come into this position and pronate. The knee does come here when we walk and we do stuff. If we limit the knee being able to come here, we come up with other problems. So when the knee being here is a problem, if the foot is just collapsed. We need to make sure the foot can open as the knee travels in this midline a little bit. So that's the work I tend to focus on for the foot with this. We're going to do a bit of release work for the adductors. You could roll them out a little bit and do some of the work that you may have seen before, but I'm just going to come in straight into this. Okay, so feet are wider than the hips. We're on the outside of the foot, and press down into the knees and chest up. So here, just relax. Just try and take a few deep breaths, let the muscles relax. If you have one kind of knee that's a bit dodgy than the other, you might find it's tighter on one side. Okay, now we're going to start to push the elbows and the knees against each other quite hard. And pull the knees away from the elbows. Hold here, keep pulling the knees away, pull the knees towards the ground, place the elbows back on, relax. We're going to do some release through the piriformis because the piriformis often gets tight if the glutes haven't been doing their things properly. So to find this, we're going to find the bony part of our top of our leg, which is kind of like just next to your pocket. And we're going to drop the ball straight towards the ground, probably a bit over one roll of the ball, and move up towards the top of your hip a bit. And you should be on the outside of your piriformis. You don't want to get this towards the middle of the muscle because we're going to be on top of a nerve. So if you do this and you feel a little bit tingly down your leg or pain, and you want to move the ball or not do it at all. And we're just going to hold there for a sec. I like to turn a bit with this too. Side. You can find that bony part of your hip. Roll the ball straight vertically down the ground, slightly up towards the top of your hip, and then come down. So put a bit of pressure over to the side. We're going to hold. If you want to intensify this, you can pull the knee up and turn. Make sure you're relaxing, you're not making that muscle tense again. Okay, onto the tummy. Knees bent. We're just going to lift the knees like this. So here you should feel the glute activate. Drop it to the outside of the mat, come back in. Now this is one you can repeat as many times as you like. Probably want to work into a little bit of fatigue unless it's before you're going off to do something. Change sides, just straight up and down, push the foot towards the ceiling. Toes kind of bent back towards the shin. And out towards the side of the mat, back in. Okay, so you could follow that up with some other kind of glute med exercises, which is generally what I would do. But for the sake of having a routine to start to work on some dodgy knees, that's a good start. Get it done. Any questions, please ask.